Greetings. My name is Hugo Alexandre Ferreira, and I'm presenting you our exploratory work, Physiological Analysis of Gambling Depending on Consumer Personality. This study was conducted at the University of Lisbon. Gambling is most probably as old as humankind itself. And in fact, the saying attributed to Julius Caesar whilst he was crossing the Rubicon River, Alea jacta est, perfectly translates, in my opinion, how gambling had permeated Roman society 2000 years ago. Whilst this practice was conducted either in open air or in seclusion, either in large or smaller environments such as casinos or secret rooms, this has mostly captivated maybe attention seeking, extroverted personalities in which we had an interaction with the other. And probably this was a barrier for more introverted personalities. With the advent of technology and the move online with the pandemics, this activity has become much more accessible. And in fact, reports claim that 90% or 97% actually of gamblers nowadays do it at home. Our question is, has there been a shift in the kind of the predisposition or personality predisposition of engaging in such activities? Was it moving from extroverts maybe now to introverts? This is what we were looking into in this study. In our case, we use the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator personality model, which is derived from Carl Jung's work, in which he considered three functions: disposition, perception, and judgment, which are related. The first to how people derive their energy, whereas extroverts derive their energy from external factors, namely the interaction with others, they are attention seeking, whereas introverts like to be left in their own space. So they prefer solitude. Perception is related to how individuals gather information, so sensing or observant people actually privilege senses and immediate experiences, whereas intuitive, they incorporate prior knowledge beyond senses in order to reach meaning. The judgment function is actually related to how this information is then organized. Thinkers analyze phenomena in a logic and objective manner, whereas feelers analyze information based on their own personal values. Myers-Briggs actually introduced an additional function called auxiliary, which is related to how people interact with the outside world, being the perceivers more flexible and adaptable, and the judges being more methodic and organized. So actually, some studies uh, suggest that this function can be considered a measure of impulsivity, being the perceptors or perceivers more impulsive than judges. And this is why we chose this personality model. So these different personality dimensions can be combined into 16 different personality types, which can be further clustered in four great groups, namely the diplomats, the NFs, or intuitive and feeling, that are known by their empathy and the ability to make consensus and idealism. The NTs on intuitive and thinking, characterized by their rationality and impartiality. The SPs or explorers, known for their spontaneity and flexibility, and SJs or sentinels, characterized by being very down to earth, safe, and stable. So, based on this framework, we further analyzed our participants. Such, with our study, we aim to respond to these research questions. One, does gambling or exposure to ads related to the topic elicit a specific physiological response? 2, does gambling behavior relate to gamblers' personality type? And 3, finally, if we can use these physiological measures to correctly distinguish between different gambling related behaviors. Let's see how this turned out. For that, these are our materials and methods. Actually, our study was conducted during the pandemic's time, and actually we had just a small window between the first and second lockdown in Portugal to conduct this study. So we resorted to a convenient sample, mostly university students who gambled or were familiarized with gambling, and then they performed the personality type questionnaire in order to be stratified. Participants were asked then to comply with this experimental protocol, which was comprised of four distinct tasks, namely visualizing videos, an excerpt of Focused regarding high stakes gamble, an excerpt from the movie Rounders related to a play of poker that actually didn't went quite well, and a 20-second clip from BetClick uh, gambling advertisement. And these videos were actually shown in the pseudo-randomized manner to the different participants. After visualizing each video, each participant filled in the self-assessment mannequin, which is a tool to assess an emotional response with regards to valence, liked, disliked, and arousal, if they found it exciting or even boredom. After visualizing the video, they moved into a task related to internet browsing, in which they spontaneously went to uh, a gambling site, or otherwise they will be drawn to go to such site. And we were uh, observing how participants responded to that, and actually characterizing those that went directly or not to a gambling site. And finally, a task on gambling itself, in which they played in an online platform but with virtual money. In the end of this protocol, they filled in two surveys, one the Southholt's gambling screen, and the criteria, and filled in a questionnaire based on the criteria from the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. So both of these questionnaires assess the propensity for uh, gambling or pathological gambling. So actually, in the beginning of the protocol, we had a baseline in which collected physiological signals in order to have kind of a comparison method, and then we had a wash off after the first video. We then collected data coming from electroencephalography and photoplethysmography, from which we derived emotional valence, engagement, and focus, as well as heart rate and heart rate variability. And this was collected using in-house developed wearable, which has electrodes that are placed in the forehead in order to perceive more on the prefrontal cortex, so related to impulsivity and decision making, as well as a earpiece that collects this blood volume pulse signal, from which heart rate and heart rate variability are derived. We then used statistical analysis as proper, and namely non-parametric testing. And we characterized the group based on age, gender, and gambling habits. So, with regards to the metrics derived from physiological signals collected during the tasks on visualizing videos, on internet browsing, and on gambling, these were analyzed with regards to gender, personality characteristics, personality groups, as we have seen, as well as gambling habits. In particular, in this chapter, we analyzed gamblers versus non gamblers, those that knew poker, that didn't know poker, and those participants with score 0, 1, 2, or 3 with regards to Suffolk's gambling score, which translates 0 to 2 non-pathological and 3 slight pathological gambling behavior. Then, as for results and discussion, with regards to our participants, we can see that they are all non-pathological gamblers, and most of them are actually non-gamblers, with one third of them being gamblers and most of them being men. We can also see that most of the participants were also uh, belonging to this group, the diplomats, intuitive and feeling, whereas the other groups are more evenly distributed. Also, we can see that most of them are introverted, they are most of them intuitive, feeling, and with regards to auxiliary function, they are more or less equal. With regards to the social demographic characterization of the study group, we can see that there are no significant differences in age distribution, but there are in gender distribution. So with regards to perception function, namely intuitive versus observant, men tend to be more intuitive, while women tend to be more observant. With regards to gambling habits, most of the gamblers, as we saw, were males, and girls were in general less interested in such activities. There were no significant differences in gambling habits, though, but there were tendencies. As far as personality groups go, all analysts were non gamblers, and with regards to judgment function, thinking versus feeling, gamblers tend to demonstrate a predominance of feeling with relation to thinking. With regards to the gender analysis, visualizing videos, we can see that there were no significant differences, although there was a trend to have men having higher emotional balance with regards to all of the videos and higher engagement also related to all of the videos. With regards to heart rate, also visualizing videos, you see that no significant differences were observed, although the same trend of males having higher heart rate. With regards to internet browsing and gambling, we can see that men have higher or significantly higher engagement and focus these tasks than women, which complements to what we have been observing. And also regarding gambling task, we observe a significantly higher heart rate and emotional balance in men. So overall, this seems to show that men are actually more engaged in gambling. With regards to the auxiliary function, we can see as suspected that perceivers, those that are more related with the impulsive behavior, they do engage more and focus more on the gambling task rather than the judges. Interestingly, we have observed this decreasing trend and focus and whilst engaging in internet browser and gambling across the different personality groups with the thinking, intuitive thinking, those that are more rational having more focused, and this is why they are kind of addressed as more analytical. Whilst those that are more observant and judging, the sentinels, kind of that are more flexible and outgoing, they focus less on the tasks at hand. With regards to gambling habits, we see again that gamblers um, have a higher heart rate in whilst seeing videos, and these are significant changes, as well as internet browsing and gambling activities. So, being the highest significance in gambling activities. So, this engagement translates into a higher activation of the sympathetic nervous system and therefore a higher heart rate. And as for conclusions and final remarks, so now we can finally address our research questions. So, does gambling or exposure to ads related to topic elicit a specific physiological response? Yes, we can say that there are differences between such physiological metrics, which depend both on gender and personality and gambling habits. So there is a relationship between how we respond, our bodily responses, and the and gambling. And does this behavior relates to the gambler's personality type? And we see that yes, some personalities tend to have a greater predisposition to engage in such activity, namely those that are SJs or sentinels, um, but especially those that are SPs, the explorers. So these have an increased physiological response to to such type of activities, and these have been associated with impulsiveness. And finally, can such physiological measures correctly distinguish between these different gambling-related activities? So this is something that we cannot yet address due to these study limitations, but in which we aim to enlarge the sample and apply different machine learning algorithms to address such topics. And with that, I thank you for your kind attention. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. Farewell.